I'm going to go over 5.3 worksheet real quick because I'm making some notes on some of your homework, which it was participation. So if you did it, you got the 10 points. But I want to make sure that we're clear on some of the things that I've been saying and some of the notes that I've been leaving. All right, so number one, you just had to write the symbol and then give me the charge of it. So for instance, chlorine is Cl and a -1 charge. Now you can put a negative. You can actually put that -1 there. Either way is fine with me. But you're going through and you're doing that for all 4 of them. On number 2, what is the name of each of the following ions? The positives are usually normally pretty easy because if it's a positive, you just name it like it looks on the periodic table. But if it is a negative, you are going to end it in IDE. So instead of sulfur, it is now sulfide. D, nitrogen, is now nitride. Number 3, the same thing here. You're just taking number 2 and you're adding them together. The first one, if you notice, the first one is always positive. Your positive ion is always first, so you'll name it like it looks on the periodic table. So for instance, aluminum, and then the O, that's a negative, so it'll be oxide. Now if you're wondering how I know, if you're not sure, you can always check. Like look on your periodic table, aluminum is going to be under the +3 column and oxygen is under the -2 column, so it's always positive and negative. All right, number 4, I wanted to make sure I went over. Number 4, the reason why we have to use a Roman numeral for copper chloride, copper 2 chloride, is because if you look at your periodic table, copper is a transition metal. I don't know the charge. That Roman numeral tells me the charge. So for instance, in one of the questions coming up, if we don't use a Roman numeral, then you will never know the charge of that atom. So say that I just told you, say that I did not give you that, and I just said, hey, it's copper chloride, tell me the formula. I'd say, okay, it's copper and chlorine. I know chlorine's a -1, but they didn't give me a Roman numeral. I look at the periodic table, and it's a transition metal, so I can't figure out the charge there either. Well, now I no longer know how to crisscross. I have no idea what to crisscross down to chlorine. So that's why it's really important that when we're writing the names, if it is a transition metal or something that does not have a charge like tin or lead, they're not transition metals, but we don't know the charge, then we need to make sure that we're putting the Roman numeral there. All right, so number 5, that's what number 5 was gearing you up to do. It was just as simple as saying, hey, Fe is iron, and it's got a +2 charge, so I'm going to do this, iron 2, with a Roman numeral. That's what you're doing for all of those. Number 6, we had to write the names, but when you write the names, you have to figure out the charge, right? So this is where it becomes really important that either you just know, you're like, hey, I see SN, I know that's 10, and I know it's not a normal one. If you don't know that yet, it will probably, by the end of the chapter, you'll start to realize which ones are and aren't. So I'm going to write 10, and Cl is chloride. And I'm going to leave a space here. So this is how I write it out for students that struggle with this. I'll say, okay, I have 1 tin, and I have 2 chlorines. Each chlorine's a -1, which means I have a total of -2. So that means this one single tin has to be a +2, right? I need this to cancel out to make it 0. So I'm going to write 10, 2, chloride. So another good one to see that with is C and D. You have, on C, you have 2 coppers and 1 sulfur. This is C. So I don't know copper, but I do know sulfur is a -2. So how do I get a +2? It's going to be a +1 and a +1. So this one is actually copper 1, sulfide. But then look at D. I have 1 copper and 1 sulfur. So if that's a -2, then this has to be a +2. So this one would be copper 2, sulfide. All right, now you don't always have to write them out like I did here. Some kids start to be able to figure this out without writing them out. That's fine. I do that to show you exactly how I'm getting these charges and these Roman numerals. All right, on number 7, It's basically just making sure that you're doing up here, that you're just figuring out what the charge is. So for instance, chlorine is a -1, but there are 3 of them, so that's a -3. So that means that my Roman numeral would have to be 3. Or you could have said +3 because it does say indicate the charge. So just a +3 for gold or AU. And that's what you're doing on each one. So I'm just going over the first ones because I will correct them when I'm going through your stuff. All right, and then number 8, you're just writing you're writing the formulas. My goodness. So magnesium is a +2, chlorine's a -1. We need these to equal 0. You can just crisscross these, just the numbers, so it would be MgCl2. Every time you do that, it's going to work out to where this is 0 every time. Let's do this one, for instance, chromium. That Roman numeral tells me it's a +2 because if you look on the periodic table, you're not going to know. So this would be CrCl2. And silver is a transition metal, but it has no Roman numeral, so I'm going to assume that it is a 1. So it'd be silver 1 chloride. And zinc, I told you guys in the notes, zinc is always a +2. So I actually have the kids in here get their periodic table out, write a +2 in the box of zinc, not above the column, because it's just zinc. Zinc is always +2. So zinc phosphide, phosphorus is a -3. So this would be Zn3P2. All right, so there's just a few that I was going to go over to make sure that if you weren't sure on how to do any of these problems, I wanted to kind of give you as a guide to help you out there. All right, if you need anything, don't understand anything, let me know because we're going to be getting some worksheets that are for a grade on this stuff. So definitely let me know if you're having trouble with any of it. All right, have a great rest of your day. Bye.